Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing a wild venture from Pika Games. A wild venture is a two-player tableau building and tableau tearing them down. That is, I'm sure that's been done in other games, but it's very, very evident here. You are building up and tearing down as you attempt to score as many points as possible in this two-player adventure. In the game, you're going to pick a side of the board. You're going to start off with which side of the board you're playing as. You're going to pick your starting initiate that you play as. That's going to determine which meeple shows up on the board. You're going to have your starting cards. You're starting frog, rabbit, and crow cards that you'll be playing with. Those are going to give you your core actions. And then past that, you're going to have some coins as well as a hand of cards. You're going to take all the stuff you've been given, and then you're going to start going on adventures. You see, the core idea of this game is you're going to take 2 actions every single turn. The most common actions, this is outside of free actions, but the most common actions are going to be playing a card and activating a card. So for example, when you play a card, you're going to look at your hand over here. You start with a bunch of cards, and you can choose which card you think is useful to add to your tableau. For example, I'll go ahead and play this crowbar so we can see an example of a gear on the board. It's going to cost me 5 coins. I'm going to take those 5 coins, pay them to the bank, but I'm also going to put a certain number of supply markers on this card. The other side of a coin is a supply marker, and you can mark that this over here now has 3 supply markers that go on it. That's going to be a measurement of how you can use up that card. So again, playing a card, pay the cost in coins, put the card in play, put any supply markers on it if the card demands. That's the core action for playing a card. Then there's activating cards. Activating cards works differently depending on what kind of card there are, and I'll say there's a few basic kind of cards. There's going to be your starting cards over here in your first row. There's going to be your building cards that you can put in your first row as well. Those are usually triggered. Something else triggers them, and then you do something. There's going to be your villagers. This is usually going to be your biggest row, adding a bunch of villagers to your row over here that all have different kinds of effects that will have supply on them as you play them, and then you can use them taking off that supply. And then you have gear. Gear is effectively going to be triggered, meaning similar to buildings, you're going to have something that triggers the way a gear works. For example, when any player opens a chest in this game, that's any player, you look at this bar over here on the belt, whatever that says is the trigger mechanic for the gear. And so when someone does the thing, whether you or another player, whoever did it gets a coin from the gear. And so if you're asking, well, if anyone can get the coins from the gear, why am I playing them? Because when all the coins are gone, when all that supply is gone, you're going to activate the bottom ability. So gears are effectively things that will eventually resolve, and then it's in your opposing player's best interest to kind of activate your gear before you activate your gear, because either way you're getting the final reward. The question is who's getting all the coins along the way. But that brings us to your main card type, your starter cards and your villagers. Your starter cards and villagers are going to usually be the thing you're activating when you take and activate a card action. Remember I said you get 2 actions on a turn. You can take the same one, you can take different ones, so you can play 2 cards, you can activate cards, or you can play 1, activate 1 in any order. When you activate a card, if it's a starter card, you simply do what the card says. Those are going to be the 3 main mechanics in the game. This is actually on its upgraded side. In fact, I think a few of these are on the upgraded side over here. You take those actions in the game. What you're going to look at is Lily Pad. Lily Pad allows you to adventure 1. So you can activate this card as one of your actions and adventure 1, which means you take your character and you move them to the next spot on that adventure, and you get the reward shown. In this case, I'm going to get 5 coins, which is good because I'm currently broke. That's going to be the adventure mechanic. Then you have the gain mechanic. Gain is going to allow you to gain coins from the supply, and that's going to give you another way to get coins outside of landing them on the board. There's also going to be drawing cards over here. The nest over here, nest is draw 1. You reach into this deck over here, and you draw a card, taking that card and adding it to your hand. Those are the 3 core actions: adventuring, gaining coins, and drawing cards. Outside of that, though, you also have your various villagers. Villagers are slightly different than your core starting cards, because your core starting cards you simply do, and that's it. Your villagers, on the other hand, you're going to activate them, and you're going to remove a supply from that villager. They have a limited number of uses before they're going to leave your tableau forever, although there's a reason you want that to happen. You see, when you activate a villager, you're going to, again, remove a supply from it, do its ability. In this case, you have gain 4. That's twice as good as gain 2. Gain 2 is only 2, gain 4 is twice as good, but you have limited actions of this card, so eventually it's going to run out. And when it does run out, this is a good time to note, by the way, you can only activate a card once per turn. Even though you have 2 actions, you have to activate different cards. When it does run out, at the end of your turn, any cards without any supplies left on them, outside of your starter cards and your buildings and all that, they will be taken and they'll be put into your score pile. So face down, you're going to go into your score pile, and those cards are going to contribute to your scoring at the end of the game. Without getting too much into that, you kind of want to be a little bit, well, well, I guess I'll get into it. There's 3 different card families. There's going to be Rabbit, Frog, and Crow. Those are going to be the 3 card families in the game. And you're going to multiply the number you have in your highest card family times the number you have in your lowest card family, and that's going to be one of these scores you get in the game. There's a few scores, but for your basic villagers, you're going to multiply the highest times the lowest. So for example, if you had 7, 6, and 5, you would multiply 7 times 5, and you get 35 points for those villagers you have. Your buildings are going to score based on the supply that you have on them. There's an invest keyword which allows you to put things onto buildings, and you're going to multiply that by the number of enchantments you have in buildings. We won't get too much into it, but you can get enchantments on the board, and you can enchant them. So you multiply that by the enchantments. I apologize, I lied. For the buildings, you simply get the investment on them. For gear, you multiply the number of gear cards times the number of enchantments you have, and that's going to be your gear score. So those are the 3 main scores you have at the end of the game, trying to be as balanced as possible in the villager types, trying to have gear multiplied by enchantment buildings, and then just trying to invest into the buildings. That's the core idea of the game. A few other small things to touch upon. First of all, adventuring. Adventuring is going to have you moving up this board where you can do anything from upgrading your cards to slightly stronger starting cards. Once you get to the end of a track over here, you're going to reset to the beginning. Those treasure chests, whenever you see those are going to have a few options on them, kind of a pick your own whatever you want the most, from tucking cards. Tucking cards is taking cards straight from your hand into your score pile, skipping the whole steps where you have to pay for them, play them, resolve them one at a time. And ultimately what you're trying to do in this game is you're trying to maximize your score through those gear, through the investing, and through the playing of villagers. But it's a tableau building game because as you play cards, you are adding to the things you can do on your turn, and then as you activate cards, you're slowly tearing down your tableau in order to turn your tableau into scoring points instead. That is basically how you play a wild venture, or at least most of what you need to go to know in order to dive into it. There's a second side to the board. There's some more costs as you move around. We didn't go into all the various actions, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Gaining coins, drawing cards, and then of course there's treasure chests, of which there's a handy-dandy player aid telling you exactly what each of the type of treasure chests will do in the game, and that's basically what you're doing as you play through a wild venture. Which means it's time for the review. What I like, don't like, can see others not liking, all of that, starting off with what I like, which first of all, the art. I'm not even an Adventure Time fan, so to speak. Like, I know Adventure Time exists. I have watched an episode here or there. This has a strong Adventure Time vibes in a cute way. I think it's very enduring. The meeples are adorable. The art's very charming and welcoming. It pulls you into this in a very accessible, adjacent game. We'll come back to that soon enough. The tableau building, I like tableau building. This offers that in the game. You're going to be getting stronger and more powerful as you go, having more things you can do on your turn as you play cards into your tableau. The relics, I really like this whole concept of these gear cards, that your opponents are motivated to finish them off for you. As soon as my opponent plays a gear card in this game, I'm looking to see how can I try to optimize to steal those coins from them, especially early game. Late game, it's a little different. Late game, as the deck, and by the way, the game is going to end when you run through this deck, by the way, which is going to last a while. Again, we'll come back to that. But towards the end of the game, I might not want to activate your gear cards because that's points that you'll get, and you might otherwise have to force yourself to pursue activating them, which can be hard. But early game, they're going to be activated, so I may as well try to get those points from you, and that involves both the strategy of trying to capitalize on what you placed out, but also the strategy of knowing when I want to help, because it's going to happen anyway, versus when you're approaching that point of the game where I don't want to help because it's going to turn into score into your score pile. So I like the gear cards of what they're doing, as well as the different timing elements that are in play. That tableau tearing down, it's nice. It's nice for a variety of reasons. First of all, you're managing your score of the game, and so you really have to think through what is good enough that you want to play it, you want to activate it, which cards in your hand do you simply want to tuck, never having benefited from the card itself, except for the way that it scores for you. So all these decisions in the game, as you go through them, there's a nice trade-off as far as the efficiency a card will give you in terms of the cost of it, what it can do, how it can work with other cards in your tableau, sometimes how it can work with opponents' cards in the tableau, and then of course, which ones do you prioritize tearing down and making sure you score them as you go through it. I didn't really touch upon this. There is a memory aspect to the game where the default mode of the game is you have to kind of just play cards and not really look at what's in your score pile, and then there's a variant for those who don't want the memory aspect where you can just look at things in your score pile. So that's kind of a pick your poison. For me, I'm definitely in the category of preferring to look, but I'll happily do whatever my opponent wants to do. Either way, it's still going to be a decent enough, either way, it's not going to be too challenging to have a somewhat good idea of what you've played into your score pile. I like the fact that you're min-maxing what you get out of each card as you play them. Again, that aspect where every single card you have to weigh up what it's worth. And then this board as well. The board gives you a puzzle because there's different pathways you can go through in the game. This starting side over here, there's 3 different tracks to go on, each one giving you different benefits. Are you trying to power up your starting cards as soon as possible because that can be really strong? You might want to go down that middle pathway. If you want to get just a ton of money very quickly, this rightmost pathway over here will give you a lot of money early on, which can really help you play strong cards a lot sooner than you otherwise would. And again, even trade-offs like that, what's the most important thing for your first few turns of the game? Getting some expensive cards out quickly because of that pathway to the right, or alternatively powering up your tempo as much as possible, taking the path down the middle. And there's reasons to take the path on the left as well. And so all these trade-offs exist as you adventure in this world. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, I'll say it's a little too long for what the game is, which is a rare complaint for me. Usually when I play games, I'm like, oh, it ended too soon, I wanted to do more stuff. But you have to go through this entire deck. I should also note, by the way, there's another deck you can play through too. So there's the main core deck, and there's 2 decks you can play through, and you mix the side decks into the main deck. Gives you slightly different feelings for the game, slightly different flavor, although I do hate separating out cards like that in situations like that, so nitpick there. I like the variety, don't like separating out cards. But this game does run a decent amount. The box says 40 to 60 minutes. I think that 40 minutes is doable once you've played it a few times. I think it is more closer to that 60 minutes, at least at first, which isn't on its own a problem, but for what the game is, by the time you get to the end of it, it does feel like it could have been, 20% shorter, 25% shorter, and the game would have been just as good without taking away from the experience. Again, it's a rare complaint for me. I usually want to get more done in the games. The problem is there's no, arc upwards. You kind of hit your crescendo. Because of the nature of tearing things down as much as you build them up, once you're a third of the way into the game, you've pretty much hit that crescendo, and now it's just continuing to play it out until you get to the end, and so I think it is a little long for what it is. That is a solvable problem, by the way. Just take out however many cards you feel comfortable with to give yourself the experience you want. So again, solvable, but that's house rule solvable, not the way to play the game solvable. Outside of that, I'll say it's almost too easy to get stuff at times, and so it's more about min-maxing your score, meaning I rarely felt like I couldn't get what I needed to play a card. I rarely felt like this challenge to be able to get stuff done. There's so many cards at a given point, you're just picking what you think combos well together. And certainly there are times where the ways cards combo together is more important, but for the most part, while I enjoy this journey, while I enjoy what the game is doing as far as giving me all these tools and all these cards and all these combos, I think that's the kind of game that playing it again doesn't significantly change up my desire to explore different interactions and combinations. And so, I don't know, it's a weird kind of complaint. I think that it's a little too easy to get stuff, and there's so many things you can do, so you're often just looking at a hand of cards and picking what the order you want to play things in or what you want to tuck. It wasn't as challenging or rewarding to get certain combos of cards out into play and then have them happen, if that makes sense. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, it's very much multiplayer solitaire. The only thing that really matters in this game, well, 2 things, I guess. Technically, some of these tokens over here are first come, first serve. Outside of that, it's going to be the gear cards. Activating each other's gear cards is going to be the interaction you have in the game, which is present, make no mistake. As you play a gear card, I will try to activate that, and vice versa usually. And so there is some degree of player interaction, but it's definitely on the lower end, not a ton going on there. And then what goes hand in hand with that as a surprising complaint is there's no solo mode, which I don't super mind. I enjoy this as a 2-player game, but it was kind of surprising because this game feels like the kind of game that could easily have a solo mode given how little interaction there is to begin with. And so if you're looking for a solo mode, I think that's something that I could probably whip up, but it's not included in the core box, so no solo mode for you. Although feel free to check out BGG, I'm sure it's the type of game that will have somebody putting together a solo mode. It really feels like it deserves a solo mode. As far as final thoughts on A Wild Venture, I've overall enjoyed this game. It's a 4 out of 5 for me. It's charming, it's visually pretty, it's easy to play through, I enjoy building up my tableau. It's an enjoyable tableau building and tableau tearing down game, where my biggest critique is there's almost too many ways to get things done and it runs a little too long. So a little too free, a little too long. Those are things that hold back the game for me personally, but overall, I very much enjoyed the experience, and it's one that I'm still enjoying as I play through the combination of the sides, the different card decks, and just try to see which card, because even though all the cards come out, who gets those cards is very much a different question, and so trying to play out the different cards combinations as much as possible, I'm still very much enjoying this one as of now. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Creature Caravans if you want a different kind of journey game, although that one you have very few cards you're getting. I think it's like 12 cards you get across the course of the game, so you have to be very, very particular about what goes into your engine in that game. And then a game that gave me a similar vibe, just as far as the kind of open end, just tons of cards, and it's all about how you combo them all together, is 4 Shuffle. Different gameplay styles for sure, but definitely check out 4 Shuffle if you enjoy A Wild Venture, and of course, vice versa. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.